Well, Sarah had made her point, as she often did. Sarah was not only my secretary, but confidant. I valued her opinion over everyone else, and I bowed to her on all domestic issues, so that when she forbade dancing, banned concerts, and hard liquor at the mansion, and many began questioning whether her private religious beliefs should intrude into national affairs, I stood by my wife.
Well, I helped James all throughout his presidency. But strangely enough, it was his health that had always been my prime concern. His diary is just filled with his own references to being fatigued and worn down. We both worked long hours, James more so since the burden of final decisions fell right on his shoulders, and he was constantly besieged by office seekers. Time and time again he complained about them in his diary.
The office of president is generally esteemed to be a very high and a very dignified position. But really, I think the public would not regard it if they could look in occasionally and just observe the kind of people by whom I am often annoyed. A herd of lazy, worthless people who come to Washington for office seeking instead of going to work and by some honest calling make a livelihood. I could not seclude myself, but I must be accessible to my fellow citizens. But there is no class of our population by whom I am so annoyed so much, or for whom I entertain more supreme contempt, than for the professed office seekers who have besieged me. It requires great patience and self-command to repress the loathing I feel toward the hungry crowd of unworthy office hunters who crowd my office. And I also was now having a difficulty with Congress, which was enlarging government appropriations to an enormous and an unnecessary amount by wanting to spend public money on internal improvements, canals, roads, and such. This was totally unconstitutional in my mind. And these expenditures were being encouraged by an entirely new entity, lobbyists, leaders and ex-congressmen who came to Washington to lobby for monies for their friends and other businesses. Such a thing was totally unheard of when I was in Congress just a decade or so earlier.
Oh, James was a total hands-on president, working morning until night, arising from his heartfelt desire to do his utmost for his country.